Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to another edition of DIY Money.
DIY money.
What's shaking, Logan?
I think you know this, Quint, but I love to host people. So my latest thing was we had a guys' weekend, and we did all the hosting.
I never asked you about that. I'm a terrible friend.
That's okay. It was a blast. We had a great time. We threw down, had the Blackstone Grill out there. We had a really
And
good
you
time.
did the menu. You sent me a photo. I mean, you went above and beyond because on breakfast day, you had eggs.
Oh, yeah. Eggs, bacon, protein pancakes.
And they weren't like mixed eggs in a carton where you put them on there and you scrambled them.
It was game
These
on.
were real
We were
eggs.
cracking like 24 eggs a morning. We were doing
What?
it. It was amazing. Yeah, no, I love to entertain and throw down.
What was the budget per person for food?
It ended up only being about $40 per person for the whole weekend.
What? And they got eggs.
Dude, Sam's Club, fire.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, good for you. That's wonderful.
What's new in your world?
So I'm still off the coffee.
Okay.
I've gotten a lot of messages about that when I talked about that with Allie a couple weeks ago. It's game changer. I'm mentally preparing myself, though. I'm going to spend 3 weeks abroad in June, and I will have coffee every day. Like, I'm not – well, first of all, I think an Italian would smack me if I went in and asked for, like, a decaf Americano. They'd be like, oh, what the – I mean, I don't know what I tried to do there, but that would not work. But that's June.
Okay.
So I'm good through June. And plus, I'll be there with students, and so – you know, what I love about not having caffeine now is that by the end of the day, I still have the energy to go outside and play with my kids and, you know, the weather's getting nicer and so forth. I'm not going to have to worry about that.
What's the hardest part of it right now?
The
For
hardest
you
part of
being
no
off
caffeine?
Yeah, being completely
was when we traveled.
Yeah.
I mean, when you travel, I don't sleep well when we travel. We had to be on all day, right? We had back-to-back meetings for multiple days, and, you know, a good cup of coffee gets you through. So, but remember that one time I wanted a tea?
You were
I was
close.
like, I'm gonna get a green tea, but I was like, it has caffeine. Logan's like, no, you can't do that. What are you doing? And I was like, shoot. So I didn't get it.
Decaf Americano. And you
Decaf
made
Americano. Yeah, $5 brown water. All right. So a couple of housekeeping odds and ends. This podcast sponsored by Jewel Financial. Visit us on the web, JOULE financial.com. We are fiduciary advisors. That's our day job. And if you have a complex situation, you want a second opinion, please do visit us on the web. We'd love to speak with you.
Send us questions, podcast@DIYmoney.org. That's podcast@DIYmoney.org. We need the questions. Although we're doing kind of a mini-series here, we need to fill up that queue for some good questions.
That's right. And Ethan has been a rock star. So if you have not checked out the YouTube, and if we're not showing up your Instagram feed, you're probably not following us on Instagram. That's DIY Money Podcast on Instagram. And the tribe is back in action, so you can find that on – I mean, basically wherever you're doing social. And I heard through the rumor mill that you guys are actually going to go on the TikTok and do a little –
It might, yeah.
News today, I don't know if this will happen, but news out today that Amazon may be buying TikTok. Or that at least they're going to make a bid for it. Okay. So then maybe we don't have to worry about, you know, it being taken over or whatever, all your data and so forth being stolen.
Let's get to the topic of the day.
Topic of the day. So last episode, Allie and I talked about lifestyle creep, and it's an important subject matter, and this whole thing has been triggered by, once again, the report we saw of mortgage delinquencies. I mean, we are seeing this evolve before our eyes where the economy is slowing and it's going to be impacting Americans. And if it's not impacting you, thank goodness, right? But I'm sure there's people out there listening that it is impacting. We're going to do podcasts about, you know, if you've lost a job or if you're facing, you know, bills that you can't pay and, you know, communicating with your creditors. And I mean, we're going to really hit the whole goal right now in this ever-changing economy is to really bring you content from where you are at right now. So many people, they're not being impacted by this. Everything's fine, right? Your career's fine, things are good, etc. But we want to make sure that we don't kind of fall victim to becoming late on a payment or not being able to pay that mortgage. And one of the most difficult things that I think many people still face, I don't care what their income is, and we've seen this across a variety of income levels, is people still live paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely. Yep.
Look, what is the deal with that, Logan?
I mean, paycheck to paycheck, meaning that any money that's coming in the door is going out the door before they get that next paycheck. And we see it regularly. And the problem with paycheck to paycheck is that you have no buffer. There's no room in the budget. Again, as it implies, you are spending every dollar that comes in the door. So what does that mean? When you have anything that goes astray at all, even including normal things like car insurance that you have to pay every 6 months, or when you have Christmas time, or you have any of that, any time that there's any deviation from the norm, there's only one way to account for that, and that's debt. You go into more and more debt. So we're seeing this. This is a regular common occurrence, and the reason is they don't have that buffer. They don't have what we call margin.
That's right. So if you think about, again, last podcast, lifestyle creep, and one of the ways that you can avoid lifestyle creep is to know where your money's going. And if you are expanding margin, that's not the people living paycheck to paycheck, but if you are seeing margin, again, a buffer, an increase, there's a tendency to then spend it just willy-nilly, like, oh, I got extra money, let's spend it. But you can then put it towards goals or make sure you're accruing it for different things, etc. But many people, you might be listening to this and go, you know what? It's time. Like, enough is enough. My buddy just lost his job. My friend just lost her job, or whatever it is, and I got to get my finances in order. Or maybe you've watched your parents train wreck their financial life, or whatever it might be. So you start down this path, okay? And I applaud you. It's wonderful. You're tracking expenses. You bring in whatever amount of money every 2 weeks, and you know where it goes. Bravo. Unfortunately, that's the first step. There are other steps. And you have to. The only way you're going to get out of the rat race of paycheck to paycheck is you must expand the difference between what's coming in and what's going out. And there's only 2 ways to do it.
Right. Only 2 ways. And the 2 ways are you either have to cut down on your expenses or you have to bring in more income. The only way you're going to ever cut down on your expenses is what we talked about last episode. You have to be tracking your expenses. You have to have a budget in place. That is the only way you are going to be able to cut expenses because you have to know where money's going. So you have to know what all the subscription services you have. You have to know how much you're spending on a monthly basis for groceries, gas, utilities, basic living needs, so that you can then cut expenses. And then the second one that people don't think of all the time is you got to look at increasing the amount of income. Then you have a buffer on the other side of saying, okay, I have my expenses under control. I can't cut much. We tell a story in our office, the person I'll let you tell it, about the person that started their paper route.
Well, before we get there, and I will tell that story, it's an amazing story about increasing margin. I want to touch just a little bit more on the cutting aspect, because when you are trying to make a financial lifestyle change, it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fun. Anything worth doing is often hard. It's very simple. It's not simple. The concept is simple. If I want to be a better runner, I got to train. It's going to be hard. If I want to lose weight, I got to reduce what I eat, or I got to eat healthier. It's going to be hard, right? Anything that you want to do worth doing is more than likely going to be hard. What pains me is when I meet with someone or talk with someone and they are paycheck to paycheck and they're at wit's end and they're really trying, Logan, they're really trying to be better financially. And if they are vulnerable enough to go through their expenses with me, I will often, not always, but I will often find numerous items that are absolutely not needs. They are wants. Now, they may think they need them, but they don't. They don't need to go out to lunch with the coworkers every day. They may not want to stay in with the sandwich, but they don't need to do that. And that's an expense. You may not want to give up the Netflix. You may feel like you need to have the Netflix. You may feel like you need to have the streaming service. You may feel like you need to have the internet at the house. I mean, I've told people when get rid of the internet. Well, I mean, how am I supposed to watch TV? You know what? For $29, you can go get an HD antenna. Make sure your television has a coaxial, right? And if not, maybe you sell the good one and buy an old one because they all had coaxials. You put it on there, you put it up, you can get like 80 channels. And you get, you're going to get like, the old reruns of Andy Griffith's show or whatever on the, Me TV, but you're also going to get the major network channels. Like, read a book. I mean, you more than likely you have internet on your phone, so you still can check email. You're not going to give up your cell phone, but maybe you need to change plans. I mean, once you start doing this, Dave Ramsey calls it gazelle-like intensity. I love it. We need our own term because I don't want to steal his, but it's what you got to have. And you got to look through, and you got to be willing to sacrifice. We tell this story a lot, different story than you were thinking. We will often meet with people, and we'll say, oh, you've got to cut expenses, or there's going to be financial challenges, right? So we'll have this conversation. And when we have that conversation like that, nothing changes until we look at the scenario, and I say to them, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or Jones, or whatever, if you do not cut expenses, you will lose your house. And all of a sudden, when they are faced with the threat of losing something, things change dramatically. So when you are tracking and you are going through, and it's not forever, you don't have to give up the Starbucks forever. You don't have to get off the Netflix forever. You don't have to do these things forever. But if you want to reach a goal and expand margin and stop living paycheck to paycheck, I promise you, it feels a lot better to lay your pillow on or your head on the pillow at night, knowing you have money in the bank to pay bills, than that Starbucks coffee or that Netflix, Amazon, whatever subscription service that you're subscribed to that's keeping you awake at night because you know you're going to run out of money before running out of month. Exactly. Now let's circle back around.
Well, yeah, and what you're talking about is you have to be intense in this journey. I mean, you really have to go after it. There's statistics out there, I know at least a couple of years ago, that over 50% of Americans are living this way, living paycheck to paycheck.
I think the number's higher.
Yeah, I think it's now significantly higher. It's like 2/3 of Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck every single month. So you have to be intense in this process, and that's what you're talking about. The same way could be increasing income and shifting from just having your expenses that you're cutting, but maybe you go DoorDash, maybe you go do or Uber, whatever. We're in a generation now where it's easier now to make side income than it ever has been. So going after that intensively and really pursuing a side hustle or maybe even starting a small business that you're doing on your own to make even small amounts of margin to start, but hopefully increasing those amount of margin over time is huge. And we know a person that literally started a paper route. They had a job, they were working full time, they cut everything they could with intensity, cut as much as they could, and they still didn't have enough margin. So they started a paper route and started tossing newspapers at 4 or 5 in the morning to then increase the amount of margin, increase the amount of income they had. And again, that's the only 2 ways you can do it: increase the income, decrease the expenses.
And that individual was 40 years old with a child at home and a stay-at-home wife. Now, that was their intention. That was their goal. But just as you were saying, they wanted to get out of debt and ultimately build passive income through real estate, something else we're going to talk about in another podcast. But the way they did it was he got a paper route. And at 4 in the morning, they were all up folding the papers and driving around, and he did it for several years to pay down the credit card debt, to get out of that, to build a base, to buy their first rental property. So the reality is we're not talking about an 18-year-old who's trying to get their finances in order and they took a paper route. So the other thing that will do is if you're cutting all these things and you take a second job, you're not going to miss them at all because you're not going to have time to watch any TV.
There you go.
But,
yeah.
I mean, so often it's just a matter of how bad do you want it. And in this environment, again, yes, the economy is eroding and we're starting to see job losses. But it doesn't mean there's still not opportunity. There is still opportunity out there. I have met with countless people. Oh, I can't afford a house. The prices are too high. I said, well, how much have you saved? Well, I haven't saved anything. Wait, what are you talking about? Prices are too high, so you just aren't saving? So now, if prices come down, are you now going to start saving and it's going to take you a multiple of years to build up? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You have to act as if right now, if your goal is to get out of debt and stop living paycheck to paycheck, it's very simple. look through every expense you have. Bring your family in a room and say to them, you know what? We're not doing this anymore. We're not doing this. Right now, look at me, kids. Your mom and dad, we live paycheck to paycheck. Every night we go to bed stressed out beyond belief because we can't afford what we're doing. And all of these things, unfortunately, are going to get cut for a while. You're going to have to read a book because we're not going to have internet anymore. You're going to have to, join the YMCA club because this other club team that we spend $8 million around, traveled around all summer, is not happening this year. All right? We're going to have to make sacrifices. I promise you, those kids in 10 years are going to remember that time more than they'll remember the weekends you spent at the ball field in some other town, in some other hotel, spending because you wanted to keep up with what everybody else was doing. So then, after you're cutting and everybody's feeling it, you're going to look through and say, where do I have extra time to potentially create extra income? And maybe that's at your place of employment. I remember speaking to a woman. She was a nurse. I said, do they do after hours? Do you do PRN? That was a thing my wife used to do. I still don't even know what PRN stands for. It doesn't matter. Professional resident? I don't know. But I was like, do you do PRN? She's like, I never thought about that. So all of a sudden, she's working weekends. She's working nights. Bam, debt gone. I mean, you have to get creative, and you have to get after it. No one's going to do it for you. There's going to be no miraculous solution that comes along. You can do it, and you got to start today. Anything else?
That's it.
Remember, friends, the secret to wealth is pretty simple. Live on less than you make. Invest the rest, and do so for a very long time. Make it a great one.